everyone, welcome back. I'm Melissa Pineda, and today I will be discussing the book, The Holy Grail of Investing. The world's greatest investors reveal their ultimate strategies for financial freedom by Tony Robbins and Christopher Zook. You may not have heard of Christopher Zook, but I know you've heard of Tony Robbins. So Mr. Zook is a businessman, investor, and author, and you can say the same for Tony Robbins, except throw in motivational speaker, life coach, entrepreneur, and household name. So these two have collaborated to create this book. It's pretty unique, I would say. Why would you want to read it? Well, they interview the most successful investors in the world and they get their advice. And then these people who are extremely successful, their advice is provided to the reader in this book. So that's a good reason, I think, in my opinion. So why don't I dive right in? This book discusses all sorts of investment topics such as real estate, pro sports ownership, private credit, energy investments, private asset management, and more. And as mentioned, the authors interview the most successful investors in the world in all of these areas and more and get their advice. The only critique I have of this book, to be honest, and maybe it's not even a critique, it's just this is reality and it's disappointing, but they didn't interview any women. And as a woman, I was kind of hoping that there would be a female successful investor out there. I know there are, they just weren't interviewed for this book. However, all of the men interviewed speak very highly of the women that stand beside and behind them, supporting them, taking care of everything else in their lives to enable them to do what they do best. But yeah, that's just an aside. Anyway, so these men in their interviews, they're always asked to provide their origin story. All of these men, most of them, I would say anyway, come from very humble origins, some of them poor. They speak about a vision that they always had ever since they were young. They talk about usually a loving family that they had, or at least people that played a huge influence in their lives, be it a teacher or a mentor of some sort. But yeah, some of the stories that stood out to me were where these men as young kids were encouraged to read a lot, like a lot of reading was involved, parents playing a big role in their upbringing, things of that nature. But these men also had a lot of persistence. They reminded me, a lot of the stories reminded me of Timothy Ferriss. And he talks about things that he does in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week. I also reviewed this on my channel. But basically, extremely persistent individuals. Ferriss is someone that will call someone every day until he finally wins them over in terms of making them give him a chance. That's what these men did. If they wanted a job somewhere or internship, they just called every single day until they're basically like, okay, fine, just come in. We'll give you a job. And then we'll see where it goes. So these men were all very persistent, very humble too. And a lot of them speak about the importance of philanthropy, not giving back, just giving, supporting others, things of that nature. Some of the advice provided by these experts that were interviewed include things like learn from other people's mistakes. You don't have to start at zero. Learn where other people went wrong. That's why there's this emphasis on reading a lot, learning as much as you can, and learning from others. Another thing is diversifying your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Also, they suggest dealing with experts. They've seen a lot of people get in over their head and lose everything. And they're saying, start small, make sure you consult with experts, get help if you're not an expert yourself in an area that you're interested in. And persistence is important. So, you're not going to succeed, probably not on the first try. So you have to have persistence if you are going to make your financial freedom dreams happen. It is a long list of people and experts that they interviewed, but I'm just going to name a couple and just a few things that I found interesting from what these people have said. And then if anything interests you, pick up a copy of the book and give it a read, because there's a lot of information packed in there from a lot of experts. Like, just think about the accumulation of years of knowledge and expertise provided here. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of what I found really stood out. So there was a man named an investor, Vinod Khosla, Khosla, and he was mentioning how TikTok took almost a year to get to 100 million users, and that was the fastest ever. But then it took ChatGPT 60 days only to get to the same amount, 100 million users. And he talks about how AI has just like taken off and ChatGPT is just blown up. And so a lot of these investors, such as Mr. Khosla, have been saying that this is where the future kind of is with this ChatGPT and all the AI technology coming out. And that was basically ChatGPT reaching that many users that quickly. It was a phenomenon that no one expected. Like how fast it happened just blew everyone away. He also talks about how Ukraine, because of the war and Russia invading Ukraine, Ukraine started a path to energy independence that no one thought was possible prior to the war. So now Germany, for instance, has no Russian gas being used at all, and they never thought that was possible before. Also, rare materials were all in China initially. So he talks about COVID and how there are huge changes, obviously, that came out of COVID. But with respect to, he says, like climate technologies have become more important and more invigorated because of COVID. So COVID started an independence from China. So the world's labor, steel, and the world's rare materials were in China. And now there's this big push, like all of the world's supply chains and all material concentrations will move out of China. So new opportunities are being created because of what happened with COVID. This is what Mr. Khosla was saying. Then there was another investor that was interviewed, Will Vanloh, Vanloh, and he was talking about how it's someone's pride that prohibits you from success. So you will fail, he's saying. So fail quickly and learn from your mistakes and try again. And this goes back to the persistence I was talking about. So start your own business young, he says, so you have time to fail and learn. Okay, this isn't saying if you're 45, don't start your own business. It's going to be easier if you start when you're 20 because you have more time to fail and learn. He says, do business with people you like, admire, and trust. That was the best advice that he ever got, and that was from Warren Buffett. Self-awareness, great communication skills, and humility are what separate the best performers from their peers. David Sachs is another investor that was interviewed, and he focuses on AI and how it's going to be the next big thing. He thinks that there's going to be an AI co-pilot for doctors and lawyers and different professions, but that's what he thinks is going to be the next big thing. So that was interesting. Ray Dalio is a friend of Robbins. He wasn't interviewed in this book, but he's referred to a lot because this is someone that Tony Robbins has worked with. And Dalio says that the Holy Grail of investing is finding 8 to 12 uncorrelated investments that you believe in and that will reduce your risk by 80%. So this seems to be kind of the core of the book, and Robbins mentions this to, and so does Chris Zook. They mention this to the people that were interviewed and sort of asked, like, what do you think of this? And it was interesting. And they all had their own different approaches as well. But Ray Dalio is a successful businessman, investor, and hedge fund manager. So he's the founder and co-chairman of Bridgewater Associates, the world's largest hedge fund, as well as a #1 New York Times bestselling author. I got that information from the Tony Robbins website. So anyway, it was interesting, his perspective, and then hearing other people's perspectives that are also very successful financial investors. Barry Sternlicht, Sternlicht, is another investor that was interviewed. He says there is always a buyer for great assets. And Robbins sums everything up with the fact that execution trumps knowledge any day of the week. So you can have a ton of knowledge, but you have to act. He talks about financial freedom and how to get there, your financial journey. What steps could you take today? He asks. Who could you call? What could you do? Because Robbins is all about action. I don't know if you've read any of his other books, but it's like, okay, now we've gone over this stuff. Now it's your turn to act. What are you going to do today to get the ball rolling? It's all about gratitude with Robbins as well. He started off very poor, but he was always someone that believed in philanthropy, that believed in giving. He tells a personal story in this book and in others of just some experiences he had in his youth and how that was made very clear to him, the importance of giving even when you don't think you have anything to give. And you don't, it doesn't matter how big, how little you give. It's the psychological shift that happens to you when you give, he says. It moves you from a scarcity mindset to one of abundance. So you're basically training your brain to realize that there's more than enough. And he says that serving, helping others, that's what makes life meaningful. And again, it doesn't matter how much you give, and it doesn't have to be financial. It could be your time, something like that, something that whatever you're able to give, but it's the idea of giving. He says that people that have said things like, oh, I'll give when I have enough money, like they never will. If they're not going to give, $5 out of they only have $100, they're not going to be giving away $1 million when they have $10 million. Like that's just, if you have that kind of mindset, that's not going to happen. So anyway, he encourages us to have a mindset of gratitude. I thought this was an excellent read. I highly recommend it. If there's anything that I've said that you found interesting, pick yourself up a copy of it. Also, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if there are any comments or any books that you'd like me to review, please let me know. Tony Robbins is awesome, Chris Zook as well, but Robbins really gets you pumped at the end of this book to really start making some big changes for yourself and for your future. So I'll leave it there, and thank you for listening. Until next time.